Hey there, Indiana. Good evening, and welcome to the Who's Left podcast, show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I am broadcasting from Bloomington. So, after a big picture, zoom out world affairs interview with Professor Dan Siegel last week, check that one out, by the way, if you haven't. Great interview, if I do say so myself. We are back to the nitty gritty of Indiana electoral politics this week. Tonight's guest is Tyler Bridges, candidate for Indiana State House District 11, located in Northwest Indiana. 219, what's up? Tyler is a young father and a teacher with a goal to push for workers, unions, education, and affordability at the State House. Tonight, we're going to learn about him, his district, why he decided to run for office, and his top 3 platform proposals. But before we welcome Tyler to the show, real quick, this is an independent media project. We don't paywall content. We don't have advertisers. We certainly don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the larger progressive Indiana network that we refuse to hide valuable information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, which, if you haven't looked outside your window, we are in. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this strait. And if a paid subscription isn't in the cards for you right now, that's okay. We still have a free option available. Like I said, no paywalls. And you can still help out by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding articles to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at who'sleft.us and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. That's HOOS Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, where you don't get that many characters, it's PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. And now let's welcome our guest this evening. There is Tyler Bridges. Tyler, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I really enjoy having you here tonight. So glad to have you with us on the pod, and excited to hear all about you and your campaign. I am from the Northwest Indiana area originally, Michigan City, which is a little bit removed from where you're at, but I spent a couple years in Lake County, so I'm familiar with the area. I have a fondness for it. I'm interested to hear what's going on up there. It's been a while since I've lived there.
Yes.
I'm sure things have changed. And I'm sure many things have remained the same, like perhaps your state representative. So let's get into it. Why don't you introduce yourself to the good folks at home?
Hi. Thank you. I'm a proud Hoosier from the region. But my name's Tyler Bridges. I'm running for Indiana State House District 11. That includes the towns of Cedar Lake, Lowell, Hebron, Wheatfield, DeMott, Roselawn, Shelby, Schneider, Morocco, and some other little areas around there. So yeah.
Well, very good. So I like to do a little part of the show when we open up called the Easy Dubs, right? The Easy W's of journalism, the who, what, when, where, why. So hey, there's the who, that's you.
Yeah.
And obviously the when is now 2026. It's election season. We got a primary here in a few weeks. Now, I don't believe you have a primary opponent, but
no, I do not. No.
But you do have an entrenched incumbent you're going to have to deal with come November, and maybe we'll talk about him in a little bit. But continuing on our Easy W's theme, the who, the when, the where is Northwest Indiana there, and that district you described. Now, as somebody who spent some time in the region, it is like Lake County is 2 different areas. You have your area, you're north of US 30, that is the core of the region proper, right?
Yes.
Where it is just like pavement as far as the eye can see. The towns really all run into one another. There is no space between them. You cross the street, you're in Dyer or Cherville or Griffith or Hammond or Munster, and
Yeah.
you're familiar with the lay of the land. You don't know where you're at. Well, I like to say, north of 30, you're basically in Chicago. South of 30, you're in Alabama.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a very rural area out there.
Yeah, and
Where
like
district is close by.
so I graduated from Lowell. I mean, which is still somewhat of a bigger school. I graduated with about 400 kids. I teach at a school that is about 400 kids altogether, at a high school that's about
Wow.
400 kids. So it's still a little bit bigger of a school. But I also went to college up in Hammond. So like I would drive all the way up 41 and see that difference. Why, right when you hit 30, it's kind of just a whole new world up there. Um, so yeah, I absolutely agree with you there.
So, well, let's talk about your district a little bit now. One thing I do know about that particular part of Lake County, if you get out toward Roselawn, out on State Road 10 there's a
Yep.
nudist colony, isn't there? People don't maybe expect that in Indiana.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, I haven't gone, but absolutely, that's in the district there. Um, I don't know if that might be Jasper County over there. But yeah, absolutely. It's in the district. The district itself covers about like four counties. So you got Lake, Porter, Jasper, and Newton County. Obviously, the southern parts of Lake County, the southern parts of Porter County, and then the northern parts of the other two. Very rural, very agricultural based, a lot of farmers, a lot of talking that you have to do with farmers and focus on them. The current rep, he's the chair for the agricultural um, group out in Indy. So it's a big agricultural community.
Well, very good. So,
Yeah.
I guess Tyler, you're a relatively young guy. We were talking a little bit before we got started here tonight, and I think you said you're 28.
Yeah,
A lot of
I am.
folks
Yes.
are not thinking about running for political office when they're 28.
Hmm.
So what spurred you to jump into this thing?
Yeah. So kind of something I skipped over at the beginning there. So yeah, I'm 28 years old. I'm also a father. So I have a 4-year old. And that's kind of like he's the reason why I wanted to run. Uh, I see in Indiana that's not going in the right direction. I love my state. There might be a bunch of problems wrong with it. I've been told to leave the state a bunch of times by people that don't agree with me, and I'm like, no, I'm not leaving. I love being a Hoosier. I love this state, but there's a bunch of problems with this state. I think we need a state that actually wants to have conversations about tough issues, wants to negotiate, wants to do things the right way. We, for example, in Northwest Indiana, the electric bills are extremely high because of NIPSCO. And our representatives aren't focusing on the affordability and different things like that. Um, my son's education is going to be extremely important to me. Uh, I want to make sure that he gets the best public education. And that's not going to happen in Indiana because a lot of our money is going towards those private schools. I'm not hating on private schools, just maybe don't get my tax money. That kind of stuff. I'm also, when he grows up, I'm a union man. I love my unions. I come from a union family. When he grows up, I want to make sure that he's protected as a worker. Uh, and I want other people's kids and other people's families to be protected and be able to afford living here. I get a lot of well, why are a bunch of people leaving Illinois? Illinois is terribly ran, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, you know what? You move here and then you still have to go work in Illinois, right? Um, so obviously, the state needs some fixing and needs some things that we have to discuss. My representative now, Mike Aylesworth, who's 82. Uh, I have never met him until I started running. He's not really much. He's not out in the community much. And I don't think that's how representatives should be. You have to be out in the community. So like I've been promising people, hey, if I'm elected, I'm going to be out there as much as possible. Maybe not every month, but I'm going to allow you to yell at me if you don't like something that I did. Right now, our current representative is not doing that. So I wanted more of a accountability as well. That's why I've kind of, got in this thing. I'm like, no one's ran against this guy really in 8 years. 6 years ago, a candidate ran, but only got about $100 donated to them. So it really
Wow.
wasn't a actual campaign. So at the end of the day, it's like, well, we need to have Democratic voices on the ballot. It's too much one side saying what they can say, and then we're not hearing the other side. And that's a big problem to me. I think it's more about negotiation, more about uh, discussing things with each other. We're not each other's enemies, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
A couple things about your current representative there. Well, number one, you said he's 82 years old.
Yes.
Like, that is too old to be serving in office. I mean, look, I'm sure whatever you think of Mr. Aylesworth, um, in his time, I'm sure he was a fine representative for his side of the aisle, and his constituents like what he did. But I mean, at that point, my God, I am 47 years old, Tyler,
Yeah.
and I am out of touch with what folks your age and certainly those younger than you need for our future. You need from their representatives for sure. Um, Grandpa over here certainly is probably not in tune with what your generation needs from their government.
Yeah.
And furthermore, he's
Yeah.
not going out into the community to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big things that I wanted to do was have a social media presence. Mr. Aylesworth, our rep, does not have a social media presence, and and that's a problem to me, right? A lot of people have been moving away from the calling and the emailing, and they get their news through podcast or through Facebook or different things that's not very conventional to him during his time during shoot 20 years ago. So that's like a big thing to me. We have to again be responsive to constituents. He's not doing that, but also like I'm in front of kids every single day. I taught from 7 o'clock this morning till 3:15 uh, this evening, right? And a lot of it is apathy. We see these kids see these old people making decisions for them, and they like to just go, it doesn't matter. I don't care. They're not listening to me anyways. And when your representative is not out there because he's an older gentleman that doesn't think you have to consistently be on top of things and respond and be responsive. You start to get the younger people that we're going to have to rely on coming, especially for Democrats, who we're going to have to rely on going, it doesn't matter. And that's sad to me, right? I teach AP civics and US history. So I always teach, like, hey, you better participate. People died for this right. Like, people used to not have the right to vote, not have the right to stand up for themselves. And we need to make sure that we're connecting with as many people as we can, no matter their political background. I shoot. A couple weeks ago, I registered 20 plus kids, and it's a very rural school. So it's probably a good amount that are conservative leaning. I don't care, as long as they're participating. So kind of got off track there, but yeah.
No, actually, I want to dig into that. I'm glad you kind of went there. My
Yeah.
daughter, she's going to turn 18 here next week. By the way, happy
Oh, happy
birthday!
birthday to her.
And she's taken AP government right now as well.
Um,
What is the thing that your students like? What blows their mind when you're teaching it to them? They're like, I didn't know that.
hmm. The thing is with them, with students, they get crapped on a lot. Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Um, and like the big thing is they do care. I know that doesn't really answer your question, but they do care. Now the problem is, as a teacher, you have to get them to care, grab their attention. So the things that like grab their attention are the wild things. I told crazy story the other day. Going over the New Deal,
Mm.
right? And we looked at the election of 1936. That's when FDR won every state but two. They're like, "Oh my God, that can happen?" I'm like, "Yeah." The guy was in a wheelchair, and he like when people weren't very supportive of disabilities and all that kind of stuff, and he won a bunch of states and was very popular. He won four elections. He was progressive for his time, and they're like, "Well, how? Why?" I'm like, "Well, he just said, hey, I'm gonna try my best to do good for you," and he actually did his fireside talks, kept people informed of what he was doing and why he was doing it. And we got that talk of responsiveness by your representatives, by your president, listening to the constituents, that kind of stuff. So they also like the story I tell them. FDR, he's one of the presidents that did cocaine. I know that's off topic, but
I did not know this.
he did
But
cocaine.
of course, back in that day, back in his day, like especially when
They
he was younger, 20
yeah,
years before that, that was
yeah.
just in your soft drinks.
Yeah, they thought it could cure some things that was ailing him, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, he also cheated on his wife." It's like they like those things, and once you get them hooked, then you can get them to critically think, like teachers want them to do, and go, "Oh, should this have happened? And what could have gone differently if this didn't happen?" Right? Um, that kind of stuff. So, a lot of it is just hooking them. Um, and in civics, most of the time, we talk about Trump and if what he's doing is constitutional. Now, as a teacher, I kind of play the middleman. Obviously, as a Democrat, I have some views myself, but I don't play the game of trying to indoctrinate or anything like that.
Right.
We talk about Trump. We talk about the Constitution. Um, we go, okay, he attacked Iran. We had this conversation, I think, yesterday. All right, he attacked Iran. Now, what does he have to do? Does he have to bring it in front of the legislature? Can he just do what he wants? Does he have to inform anyone? Those kind of conversations that link to the curriculum. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a whole can of worms. You could talk about how the fact that we haven't actually declared war in the proper sense since
Yeah.
World War II, when FDR was still alive, and
And that blows their mind. That blows their mind.
it's
They're like, what?
yeah, especially considering the amount of military action we've taken across the world in that time where
Yeah.
we've not declared war. Yeah, what do words mean? Even if you're bombing and killing people and sending in troops and not calling it war,
Yeah.
what is that even? But FDR, I think that era. Especially is really instructive at this time when we're very much in a major global realignment. I don't know if you're familiar with the works of Strauss and Howe and the Fourth Turning, and
Mhm.
I folks both on the left and right are very into this. I know Steve Bannon's also like very into the Fourth
Yeah.
Turning too, for nefarious purposes. But every four generations, it seems like clockwork, the major institutions and systems go through this huge upheaval.
Yes.
So if you look at the World War II era in the 1930s and the collapse of the financial system with the Great Depression and all that, well, like clockwork, four generations before that was the Civil War, four generations before that was the Revolution.
Yes.
And you can take this back to the colonial times and even
Mhm.
all the way back to England if you want to. But it really situates where we are historically
Yeah.
in our era, and certainly for those kids of that generation, it's interesting times, though that's
For
a
sure.
curse in some cultures. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Sometimes they're just unaware of things, but they're on top of it. They get things, and they can critically think uh, a lot on these issues. And I mean, they're a young group that's lived through a lot. Like your daughter's, she's 18, but I mean, she's seen a lot of historical things going on, um, that also has affected their education. So, um, yeah, I think you're absolutely right that for generations we're coming up on it, and I think, which is ironic. I think I thought America was moving towards more isolationism, and that's kind of like where I thought we were moving towards, because of the populism with Donald Trump and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even some of the progressives and the liberal group in the Democratic Party is kind of isolationist, like don't get us involved in wars and that kind of stuff. We're like, so it's interesting that we've moved away from it, but I think that's maybe where we're headed. Is kind of scaling it back, or maybe that's my point.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, like
So
a lot of his base are upset about this. I mean, you
yeah,
see Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others out
yeah,
there just in the last week are like, "Hey, what are we doing here?" And
yeah,
you see a lot of folks on the progressive left like opposed to this, but then
hmm,
you also see a lot of kind of liberal internationalist kind of folks that are into the bulwark in the Atlantic.
yeah,
They might not say it out loud that they're in favor of this, but they're like, hey, why didn't you consult us first? We would have said
yeah,
it was okay. Um, and
yeah.
it
That
really
was my
shows how
congressman's
the two
response.
parties are kind of
Yeah,
the two
yeah,
parties are kind of in the middle of a realignment. I think we're switching from being opposed on one axis to being opposed on a different axis, the same way that we
yes,
the parties used to be a lot opposed economically, and then in the 1960s they shifted to more culturally opposed,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And we're definitely back at that cultural opposition. That this culture wars is crazy to me. So, I
Especially, yeah, because
yeah,
we
I don't know.
went
I grew
through
up in
the
that.
Obama era and we thought we were
Yeah,
making progress, right?
progress, right? I saw this thing. So I grew up in a single mother household, but we also lived with my grandfather. Right, my grandfather is an FDR Democrat. He was born in the 1920s. He went to war in World War II. Grew up during that FDR period. So he was a lifelong Democrat. And then I grew up during Obama's time. So like, what I learned was like, hey, we're not all bad. Like my grandfather had a bunch of like his brothers and his friends were Republicans, and it wasn't like we were so far apart socially, like on social issues, that like you're like, oh well, you don't respect human beings. I can't really hang out with you because you can't respect a human being's identity or different things like that. Um, so it's just crazy to me that we're just like we could be here, but we're just not even on the screen. We're so far apart. It feels like when we actually have so much in common. So we just got to get back here, like being able to discuss things and have civil conversations and actually compromise. Be like, oh, I get where you're coming from. So
I was having a conversation with someone last night, and we were sort of talking about these things, like and it is my contention that the reason the culture war garbage works is because folks' economic needs aren't being met. We've given so much. We've let the wealthy and the oligarchs take
mhm,
so much wealth from the working people over the last 40 to 50 years that people are hurting. And when you're hurting, a lot of times you look for someone to blame. And
yeah,
Republicans, especially these Trump Republicans, are right there to tell you who is responsible for your station in life. Now, they won't tell you the truth. They're going to blame the immigrants and black folks and queer folks and the trans community for the reason that you're broke and your family doesn't have anything and your health care is expensive and your NIPSCO bill is through the roof. When really it's their donors that are the problem.
yeah. People trying to make profits over people, which is what Indiana does. I mean, look at with data centers. We're just trying to make huge profits and that kind of stuff, and we're not thinking about communities and people and different things like that. Um, and then historically, me and my kids, what November last year, we went over the Gilded Age, and they're like, they kept on bringing up present day stuff. I'm like, nativism sounds familiar, right? Like it. We can see ideas of nativism and different things in today's society, and the wealthier you're getting wealthier, and in reality, a middle class Republican and a middle class Democrat are both getting screwed over by the rich and wealthy in this country. So
They say history
yeah.
doesn't repeat itself, but it
Oh
rhymes.
yes.
Well, I think
Yeah.
right now we're in a moment like we're like a really bad rapper rhymes the word with the same word, and I think that's kind
Mm.
of where we're at
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I want to talk about your three things, right? We talked
Yeah.
about the who, what, when, where, and the why. I want to talk about like how you're going to talk to folks and get them excited to come out for you, and what your platform is, and how you're going to get that turnout here in November. So, like, what are the things? And I assume generally that your three things kind of line up with the concerns from folks that you're hearing in your community. So
Yeah.
let's dig into those a little bit, and talk about your major policy planks. So I think you said up at the top you're a big education guy as a teacher.
Yes.
One would expect, and you're also a big supporter of organized labor.
Yes.
Also, a place where the Venn diagram overlaps there.
Yeah. Yeah. The big thing that obviously I'm sure you've talked to a bunch of candidates is, and I know it's the word of 2026, but affordability. It's hurt Indiana, I think, a lot more than people realize. I saw a report the other day that our job growth is like 49th in the country. That kind
Wow.
of stuff. Like our economy, they're going to be like, oh, we have a surplus, we're doing fine. But in reality, like Hoosiers and their families are feeling squeezed every day. And like, you don't want to go into that doom and gloom. Okay. But in reality, if Republicans in Indiana cared that your groceries were going up, that your utility prices are going up, that your rent's going up, your mortgage is going up, that things seem more out of reach than they usually are or used to be, they could fix those with no Democrats showing up down in Indianapolis. They have a supermajority. They would have quorum with no Democrats. If they really wanted to fix the issues facing Hoosiers like me and you, they would do it. And that's kind of the thing that I tell people when I talk to them. I go, there's no discussion happening. They're like these guys think they're so safe and that they don't have to come and talk to you and that your issues aren't real. That they aren't putting forth legislation that actually is going to help you. For God's sakes, a special session was called for redistricting and not for prices of groceries or the utility price hikes. My utility bill this year was, or sorry, this month was $300. The delivery fee alone was 100. I'm like, how does that even make sense? So I'm his constituent and I want to know, like, what are you doing for me? What is your job if it's not to help your constituents? What is your job to not, if it's not to hear from them? And affordability is at the top of everyone's um mind right now. Everything just costs a bunch. And then I think another issue we have, like you mentioned, I'm an educator. I'm in a classroom every single day. Education's a big thing going on. Yeah, we have a surplus, but again, we're at the bottom 10 of all states giving or for per child spending in the education realm. We're not giving enough money for our students, and especially in public schools. I know you probably know this, but we have this voucher system, and some of my constituents don't like my take on the voucher system, and that's fine. Like I'm willing to listen and have this discussion. Um, but I'm not a fan of it. I would like to get rid of it. Is it going to be possible? Probably not. I'm not an absolutist. I think there needs to be, at bare minimum, restructuring of the voucher system. In June, they're getting rid of the max amount of money that you can make to get a voucher. And that's crazy. So you could be making millions of dollars and get a voucher for your child to go to private school. They told us, they told us that these vouchers were for low income families, for these people in that can't afford their child to go to private school. And private school can benefit some students. They need a change of environment, different things like that. Um, I'm not like stupid when it comes to that. I'm not. I know I'm biased. I'm a public school teacher, but in reality, 70% of the people that show up or get the voucher, sorry, 70% of the people that get the voucher, the students, the families, they never step foot in a public school. So you're just reimbursing those families that are already going to private schools. And 50% of the people getting a voucher, they, um, 50% of them make over $100,000. That's well above the average income of a Hoosier household, right? Or a Hoosier in general. So, and the average is 103,000. So it's not really benefiting those lower income families. And we're not putting enough money into those public schools. Now, why do I care? What's the point? Why do I bring this up? Well, education is the great equalizer. That's the thing about education. I fundamentally believe Indiana would be in a better place. We rank at the bottom of so many different things, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's cheap." Okay, yeah, great, but like we don't want to be dumb. Like we need to be, and I'm not saying we are dumb. I'm just saying education leads to a greater future. Education, if we get ahead of the game, we can lead the country instead of following. We're like, I don't think our state needs to be followers. I think Hoosiers are natural leaders. In education, if we put our money um, in public schools and modernizing it and maybe putting in track systems and different things, we could actually push forward and be a leader in this country. And I think that's important as well as a proud Hoosier. And then lastly, workers' rights. So I actually work in Illinois. And that's something that I tell people all the time. I go, I work in Illinois. Why do you think I work in Illinois? Well, as a teacher, I could go on strike. I'm part of a union. I actually could go on strike in Illinois if I don't like the negotiations that are going on. In Indiana, teachers really have no right to go on strike. I mean, they could, but their ability is very, very low. I also get my pension doesn't get taxed in Illinois. Um, I get paid more in Illinois. Um, I get better benefits, better health care from my job in Illinois. And why is that? Well, Illinois is a workers' rights state. Illinois backs its unions. Illinois backs its workers. Indiana is a blue collar state. Indiana is a state that is proud of the hard work that it does. That like I know that, and to go well, let's back these corporations instead of these workers, the regular day Hoosiers, is bullcrap to me. Um, there's not enough fair pay. We're still at the minimum wage of 7.25. We, you know, like we need to bump that up. We also don't have a lot of job security again because the limited ability to unionize, to have that negotiation um and stronger protections in that way. We also don't mandate sick leave or paid family leave,
Hmm.
right? And like that's crazy to me in 2026. And everyone's like, "Oh, keep that over in Illinois." I'm like, Most you work in Illinois for a reason," and I keep on saying that. It is, and don't get me wrong, Illinois is also a terribly ran state. I like most people that live there don't like living in Illinois. So like don't be like, "Oh, I want to make it like Illinois." I'm just saying like at least the workers benefits part, the part where like unions are strong and the workers get their pay and their benefits, that's something we should model after. Because Hoosier workers deserve those things. And if you say you don't, hate to break it to you, you might be a scab, and that's
Yeah.
so. And out front of my house is just like I have a sign that says "Don't be a scab." It's protect workers, be that person that stands up um, for the everyday man. You know what I mean? So those are my three big things that I bring up, especially in my speeches, though. So hopefully that answers it.
Well, and they're all related, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because if you bet the affordability crisis and the privatization of our schools, right? That mean
yeah,
that's our Republican legislatures working for their donors. They're working for the utility companies who own them. I bet if you look at your opponent, the incumbent, he's probably taking money from NIPSCO or their
yeah,
parent company NiSource or the utilities uh industrial lobby. They all
yeah,
pool their funds together and obscure the source of the funding and
yeah.
everything else, right? And then you also have the private school lobby, the charter lobby, the religious schools certainly
Hmm.
have their own want to get a piece of the public pie, which you can talk about the constitutionality of all that, but even just
Yeah,
from an educational quality standpoint, they're not necessarily meeting the standards that we would like our students to meet, just in terms of performance. And you see it in our test scores, you see it in our educational rankings relative to other states who are doing things better. And uh, along those lines, with workers not having the ability to unionize as much in this state. Unions don't have as much protection. We're a quote unquote right to work state, which is
yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
They've done a good job branding something terrible as something that sounds good. Oh, everybody likes right
yeah. It
to work.
sounds
Well,
great, but it's a bunch of crap. Like you could be part of a union, but not pay the dues. That cuts off the ability for that union to fight for you. It's sorry, it's crazy. Yeah, I agree.
and so these things are very much intertwined, and that's why it's going to take folks like you in Indianapolis there to break the supermajority. And at the very least, let's say Hoosiers Democrats don't win in November and take back the state house or the state senate. I mean, that's a long
That's a
shot.
tall,
We're
yeah,
going to be
tall ass.
realistic
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
but at the very least, if we can break the supermajority and put a break on some of the terrible things that they're doing, maybe we can start clawing back some of these things. I want to dig into the education bit a little bit,
yeah,
especially with
yeah.
these
Let's do
vouchers,
it.
right?
I love it.
If you look at a state like Arizona, they
Yeah,
are a couple years ahead of us, I think, on the universal vouchers, right? Which is everybody can get them, like you were pointing out. It doesn't
yeah,
matter. There's no income limit. The richest families are getting the same vouchers as poor families are getting, and they're finding out, won't you know, that in Arizona, number one, it's not improving their education outcomes, but number two, it's blowing a hole in the state budget.
yeah. Oh, wait, and that's the like privatizing things. Not a good idea, and you're absolutely right. Like at the end of the day, the voucher system has its problems because these lower income families, you have to think, how are they getting to these private schools? A lot of them aren't like living right next to them. They don't have a person that can just, oh, let's get in our car and go. It's, I'm working two jobs already, and you're just gonna go get on that bus or walk your butt to school, that kind of stuff. So it's, again, it doesn't actually benefit those lower income families. And I'm sure if I looked at the data at Arizona, that's what it's probably going to show. And it's just also getting rid of their um, economic status there as well.
And in rural districts
Yeah.
like yours
Yeah.
and rural
Yeah.
communities, that the school choice that they tout, just it's not there.
Yeah.
These for-profit charter schools that are out there to make money, they're not
Yes.
serving rural communities. There's not the population density. There's not the number of students to serve where you
Hmm.
can turn a profit if you're serving small groups. So they only open in the big cities. Well, that leaves communities like yours high and dry. They're taking
Yeah.
funding that could go to rural schools, that could go to strengthen rural schools. They're closing rural schools. They're
Yeah.
consolidating those districts. They're making the kids in your area get on a bus and ride for an hour to the middle of the county, and giving that money to wealthy folks in the suburbs to send their kids to private school.
Absolutely. And another thing that we have to bring up, one of my constituents brought it up the about 2 weeks ago, or people I was talking to, and they were saying, well, they can deny whoever they want, really. It's a private school. I go, yeah. They go, they're not accepting kids with IEPs. They're not accepting kids with 504s. They don't have to hire a special education teacher because they can deny all they want for those kids. And again, then those kids get lesser funding in the public schools where they absolutely need special education and the tools, um, to make sure that they can be in a gen ed classroom or different things like that. So there's all sorts of different things that are problems with, like you said. Um, and something to think about is those kids with IEPs and with those learning disabilities and whatnot. So
Well, and if you take this thing to its logical conclusion, right, with this
yes.
voucher program and these private schools, they don't need to take kids like that. Well, if you if
Yeah.
you if you put this on steroids, that leaves you where the only kids that are in the public schools are the ones with the IEPs, or the ones that are struggling, or the ones who come
Hmm.
from underprivileged backgrounds and they can't afford to get to the private schools, and so the kids who have a leg up already are out of the public school system, and then we go, well, why are the test scores so low? It's the Eric Andre meme. Why
Yeah.
would why would public schools do this?
Yeah. It's yeah. It's crazy. And I've had some conversations where people are like, "Oh, public schools suck. They're terrible. Like they're not good enough." I'm like, "Yeah, because we don't fund them and we teach to standardized tests and we haven't modernized our education system in decades." So it's like not the way is it's not you don't take money away from schools and it's not going to magically fix it, and then you don't give money to schools that you barely have any oversight to. It's like it's such backwards thinking to me, um to go, well, the answer is to take funding away from public schools. That's crazy to me. um how one can sit if you sit in a classroom, teachers will tell you, and so you could see in students, we have problems with reading at grade level, being intrinsically motivated, being critical thinkers is all things that we struggle to have students do, to be or have this ability of what's the word I'm looking for, digital literacy, those kind of things, and being able to have standards that align with digital literacy and being able to see what's real and what's not, or what's factual and what's not, and critically think about those things is important. And our state standards and where our state is putting emphasis on those things, it's not there because they're focusing on giving money to schools that they barely have any oversight over. Um, so again, I'm not going to be like, oh, they're perfect, give them a bunch of money. That's not true. This you need to modernize. You need to rework standards. You got to get rid of this the dumb standardized testing. You have to teach to a standard instead of a test. Um, so it's absolutely like we kind of have to rewire people's brains about it in this state, because there's not a like in my district, right? Someone's not really ran in 8 years. No Democratic voice, no person that supports public schools being out there talking about why we have to support public schools uh, has caused the problem, and it's all about that work. So I'm willing to do it.
And I want to talk about labor a little bit
Yeah.
here because you and other public school teachers are out there fighting for your students and you going to bat and trying to get them the things they need and meeting resistance from places like the State House, and I'm sure Springfield and Indianapolis are different beasts, but but in general, I want to zoom out. I talked to Mark Gavart here. Oh boy, it was probably a month or 6 weeks ago at this point now, and he's a organized labor activist. He's up in the Fort Wayne area and has his own radio show where he talks all about union organizing and whatnot. And one of the things we talked about was sort of where the blue collar and the white collar unions butt heads, and the teachers unions, government employees,
Hmm.
and folks like that. Like nurses unions, we don't have as much here in Indiana. My wife's a nurse. Like God, I wish they could unionize.
Yes, they
That's a
should be able to.
profession that really needs to unionize. If you look at like in New York and California, where they have strong nurses unions, they're in a lot better shape than we are
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But but if you we talked a little bit about this before we went on, up in Northwest Indiana. They're talking about the Bears moving across the state line into Hammond. They want to build the stadium, and organized labor up there, they're all about it. They think that's a great idea. Now listen, these stadium projects never pay off. The public funding,
Yeah.
it always winds up costing the state or the local taxpayers more than they generate in economic activity. The numbers are there. You can debate how much civic pride is worth, but if you just look at
Mhm.
it cynically and financially, they're not worth it. But the unions want the jobs,
Yeah.
and I get that. But in the long term, once that stadium's built, that's not going to be union jobs in there working
Mhm.
selling the popcorn,
No.
selling the merch, working as parking attendants and stuff. So it's a very short term thinking, and a lot of those rank and file blue collar union guys, they vote Republican, and I'm trying to figure out why.
I- So, it's great question, right? Because most of your like union presidents and union leadership, they'll push the Democrats are for unions, that kind of stuff. And in
Sean
the
Fain's going to
town,
be here in Indianapolis soon, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah,
UAW, yeah.
yeah, and like I have a UAW sign outside. It's the scab sign that I was talking about. Um, anyways, but I think a lot of it has to come down to the idea of culture. Again, comes down to culture wars. So on one side of my family, there are a bunch of UAW workers. My grandfather retired from the UAW. My uncles worked at the UAW, at the Ford plant over in Illinois, and they're Republicans. Now, again, I think it doesn't have to per se like, oh, who supports by union, it because again, like you said, we're all kind of economically getting screwed, and it's been such a stalemate there. It's more of the culture war kind of stuff. um Democrats have had some missteps in culturally. We're like, oh, we're safe to be progressive, and in some instances we've had some messaging wrong, stuff like that. um and I think a lot of that has to do with it. But going back to in my town, we have a Labor Day parade. I live in Lowell, Indiana. It's one of the longest running parades in the state. It's a Labor Day parade. And the funniest thing is, Republicans walk in it every single year. And one year, I just went, "Aren't you against unions? Aren't you against like the idea of unions and whatnot?" And they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "So why, like,
Why
what's
are you here?
why are you here?" "Oh, it's the local parade, we're." I'm just like, that doesn't make sense. And then they told me that they're part of a union. I was just like, that's even more mind boggling. to me that you're benefiting, probably not even paying your union dues in some cases, especially if you're just admit to me that you don't like the union, and benefiting off of the protections that the union gives. It's just, I don't think people realize how much unions have benefited Americans in general, and like given us the 40-hour work week and that nice private healthcare insurance that you have doesn't happen without unions, and like all that kind of stuff is just, it's just, oh, it already happened. Now we don't have to worry about it. They're not going to take that away from me, you know? So I think a lot of that stuff has to do with why some of our union friends are Republican there.
So I guess, with little time we got here,
Yeah.
you're an educator. Tell us, educate us, or how would you educate people you're talking to? Connect these dots that our Republican legislators are working for the bosses, they're working for the utilities, they're working for the school privatizers, they're working for the folks who are picking our pockets. Um, how do we develop that class solidarity between the blue collar union workers, the white collar, the professionals, the teachers, the folks in the government unions and whatnot, and how do we realize that we're all on the same side here, and it's more so than it's red versus blue or right versus left, it's top versus bottom.
Yeah. Um, I like the idea, and I absolutely agree that we have to realize that we're all in this together. My best friend's a Republican, and I respect the hell out of him. We disagree. This is what I bring up. I say we might disagree on a lot of stuff, right? But in most of our daily life, we're the same, right? Big sports fans. Um, we big Purdue fan, but we both went to Purdue. All sorts of different things that we have in similarities, and that's most of Americans, most Hoosiers. Now, I don't like the idea of quick fixes. I'm a person that can have some patience, and at the end of the day, we have a uphill battle as Democrats in this state. I don't like quick slogans. I don't really like using the phrase affordability. I don't like simplifying issues. I know we have to as politicians and people in politics, but in reality, as a whole, we're going to have to realize it takes infrastructure, it takes time, it takes actually having consistent people on the ballot every single year, having the option of a Democrat, and being out there and talking to people, going, "Hey, I'm not this crazy liberal. I'm actually, pretty reasonable, and tell them that actual crazy liberals aren't actually crazy liberals, that kind of stuff." But like, just going at it as one conversation at a time and humanizing the issue and making people realize it's like, one of the things is, I get brought up a lot is guns. I live in a district that is very pro gun, right? I lived in a house pro gun, right, as a Democrat. Me and some Democrats might disagree, but I'm like, okay, have your gun, right? I'll go shoot with you. I'll go to the shooting range with you, right? But we need to have responsible gun ownership and responsible laws about it. Now, what does that look like? And we have that conversation. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you're a gun snatching Democrat or you're a gun loving Republican. Okay, whatever. Call me whatever you want. But here's the reality of this situation. Um, and I think coming at it is like, there's a reason people call you names, there's a reason people believe certain things, and just educating them and having that calm, cool, collected conversation. Now, that might be harder to do because people like to yell, people like to scream over you. Um, but it doesn't hurt trying, right? We have to be proud Democrats. I'm a proud Democrat. I know there's problems with the party. Um, but I think that this is the party that represents workers, that is empathetic, that is thinking about everyday Americans, but also everyday Hoosiers, and the plight that they're going through, the struggles that they're going through because of um, what the rich and wealthy are putting upon us, and that kind of stuff. So we just have to be able to discuss these things. Now, how one of the this is one way how hopefully people watch this. Um, but going into, like, I went to a fish fry. I went and talked to people at the fish fry. They didn't like me talking to them while they were eating, but I went. And a bunch of them were like, Democrat. I'm like, hey, hold up. Where's your state rep? When's the last time you seen him at a fish fry?
Mhm.
So I think it's just one step at a time, and it's going to be something that we have to work towards. It doesn't happen overnight.
Love it. Well, great message, great close. Where can folks learn more about your campaign and maybe help you out?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find me on Facebook, which is what I use the most, for Tyler at Tyler Bridges for Indiana State House District 11. But I also have an Instagram, X account, and a TikTok account, which is Bridges for D11. And then if you guys wanted to donate to my campaign, we're trying to get yard signs right now for the primary, just to get my name out there. You can donate at Act Blue, which is linked on all of my socials.
Very good. Well, Tyler, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I'm going to take this thing home here. I'm going to send you
Okay.
off screen. Stick around. I'll catch you on the other side.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and do my little sign off here, and I will see you to debrief on the other side of the closing credits here in just a couple minutes.
All right. Thank you for having me.
All right. Tyler Bridges, everybody. Thanks so much for being here tonight. All right. That was Tyler Bridges there running for State House up in District 11 in Northwest Indiana. Once again, thanks to him for being here. Tomorrow, for those of you down here in my neck of the woods in South Central Indiana, I will be moderating a Bloomington DSA candidate forum at First United Church on the city's east side. That's at 6 p.m. local time. There will be candidates in House District 61 and the 9th Congressional District here. Hope to see you there. And of course, I will be back Sunday morning at 10:30 right here on this very channel for Who's Left This Week, Indiana's only Sunday morning political news show by and for progressives. My guests this Sunday are House District 47 candidate Michael Potter and 8th District Congressional candidate Tabitha Ziegler. We're going to talk all about this week's news. Hopefully, less going on than last week, but somehow I doubt it. Thanks once again to Tyler for tonight's conversation, and thank you for joining us. One last reminder to please consider supporting Who's Left and the wider Progressive Indiana network with a paid subscription if you're able. This independent media project relies solely on the generosity of kind patrons like you to make this information available for free to everybody. Again, that's at progressiveindiana.net. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle, and on Blue Sky and TikTok, we are at PIN Indiana. You can find me on most social media sites at Who's Left. That's HOOS Left. You can send me a DM, any of those, with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns, or email me directly at scott@whosleft.us. Finally, please forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on too. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.